Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. This is another presentation from www.central-mosque.com and from the Humble Heart YouTube channel about Chinese-Indian war in Ladakh. If you're having trouble keeping up with me, simply switch on subtitles or closed captions and the button looks like this in this video. This presentation is a summation of my research on the issue, which I'll present in a methodical manner. I will deliberately avoid complex, grainy, obscure satellite imagery and try to explain the issue as plainly as possible. The date today is the 4th of June 2020, so this presentation is consistent with the information in the public domain by the 4th of June 2020. It is, however, at the end of the day, my opinion, so feel free to disagree, but disagree with facts and not with rhetoric. I understand that the Indian government and Indian media are pushing a certain narrative which is conformant to their interest, and that's fine. I'm here to present my findings in a methodical manner. This presentation is split into two parts and we will discuss Sikkim and Ladakh separately. India and China have no border disputes in Sikkim. And yet, Sikkim is where the first skirmish with China started on May 9th, 2020. There's no focus and attention on Sikkim in Indian media at all. We will discuss both of these threats and then split the Ladakh issue even further. India's strategic vulnerability has been the Siliguri corridor, or the chicken's neck. Imagine the physical depiction of Indian geography as a chicken, and this would be the neck of the chicken. If you grab the chicken by its neck, it renders and chokes the rest of the chicken. However, Indian media overhypes this vulnerability, as I've stated in the Doklam video. Link is in the description for you to watch. Looking at the map purely, the narrowest distance is a mere 14 kilometers between Bangladesh and Nepal. Compromising or choking the Siliguri corridor means that India's access to its northern states, including Sikkim, will be cut off. The entire supply line and transport network of India goes through this narrow corridor right here. India realized it from the beginning and built links with Nepal and Bhutan to counter this strategic vulnerability. However, the relationship with Nepal has deteriorated, and it's a matter of time for Bhutan to establish good relations with China and do some kind of land swap deal. China wants Doklam Valley, and again, watch my older video, link is in the description. Alienating Nepal, which is now a done deal, and Bhutan in the future, will leave India tactically vulnerable. Now, let's talk about the issue of Nepal, which is recent. Hindus believe that this Mount Kailash, which is in Tibet, is the abode of Lord Shiva. Lake Manasarovar, these are two words in Sanskrit but often written and pronounced as one, is the lake which is fed by the glaciers from the mountain Kailash. Hindus believe that this lake is a manifestation of purity, so drinking its water or bathing in it will cleanse a person of their sins. Every year, thousands travel to it for spiritual pilgrimage, but the route was long and cumbersome. There are few ways to get there from India, and I won't elaborate because it is outside the scope of my presentation. But the current Indian government decided to build a road through Sikkim and included areas of Nepal and issued a map including those areas of Nepal in the Indian map. There's a lot of resentment in Nepal over the years against India and Indian interference in their domestic affairs, and this blatant inclusion of Nepal areas by Indians touched a raw nerve. Nepal in turn issued a new political map showing areas of Kalapani territory into its map. By the way, this dispute isn't new and not brought about due to the new road, but has been ongoing for decades. Now let's look back at the Siliguri corridor, and you can see that the relationship with Nepal and the worsening of it can be catastrophic for the tactical situation for India. Moreover, Nepalese under a treaty serve in the Indian army as Gurkhas in several regiments and generally serve in the mountainous terrains of India. Aggravating the nationalistic sentiments of the Nepalese Gurkhas within the Indian army is also strongly ill-advised for the defense needs of India. However, the real game is in the Chumbi Valley sector, which is part of Tibet and sticks out like a dagger. China over the past 20 years has built up excellent road networks and upgraded its infrastructure, positioned its troops and artillery in the Chumbi Valley, directly threatening India. Chinese already threaten India and do so from a commanding point of view because of better infrastructure and more troops which are better equipped. Now let's turn our attention to the LAC, or the Line of Actual Control. This isn't a border defined by a conflict, but a peacetime agreement which is loose and undefined. There are no lines, and the term used here is perception. There is an Indian perception of the LAC and a Chinese perception of the LAC. This is the main reason or the criteria used by the Indian government and the Indian media to weave a particular narrative. Apart from the issues of land demarcation, Pangong Tso is a lake and the LAC passes right through it, and nobody can demarcate a border within flowing water. There are vantage points which the Indian Army refers to as fingers. I have marked this as fingers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in the map. The LAC from an Indian perspective has always been up to finger 8, which is roughly here. The Chinese now occupy the area up to finger 4. In fact, China is now camped at Foxhole Point, which is between finger 3 and 4. These are undeniable facts, so Indian media simply changed their perception of the LAC from finger 8, which is here, to finger 4. So guess what? If the Chinese hasn't intruded anywhere, so there isn't a problem to solve. This can be simply answered by saying if there's no intrusion by China in the Pangong Tso Lake area, then why are the two militaries officially discussing Pangong Tso? There is no intrusion, so there's nothing to discuss. Now let's turn to Galwan Valley and the new all-weather road by India called the Darbuk-Shiok DBO, also called Subsector North Road. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about history. This area was ruled by Sultan Saeed Khan, who was a Mongol Muslim. He passed away near the tip of the area, and the location today is called Daulat Beg Ulri, which translates to a place where the rich and the famous person returned to God, or in other words, died or passed away. Indians pronounce Ulri as Oldie in English. The valley itself was discovered by Haji Ghulam Rasul Galwan, who was a Kashmiri migrant to this area. Haji Galwan also served as the native assistant to the Americans and then to the British Joint Commissioner, so the valley is named after him. Now back to the map. The road is the only viable all-weather and supply route to Indian bases for the forward areas and onwards for these bases to then supply the Siachen Glacier and other remote posts. Indian media is denying any intrusion into the Galwan Valley, but Colonel Ajay Shukla, one of the foremost defense experts of India, has admitted that the PLA are now 1.5 kilometers away from the DBDO road. By the way, a senior Indian journalist also referred to PLA as Pakistan Liberation Army on live TV, and another journalist stated that Pakistan was sending locusts, yes, swarms of small insects to India. My topic is not the Indian media, but the less said about their professionalism, the better. Let's look at another map. Remember Kargil, the war between India and Pakistan, which India won and made a million movies out of it? Guess what? One of the strategic areas, point 5353, inside India is still occupied by Pakistan. Point 5353 gives Pakistan the ability to target and cut off Highway 1, which is the best and all-weather link between Srinagar and Leh. These are all tactical discussions of which the Indian media is denying. So in summary, The Chinese have the Indian road in their crosshair on one side and Pakistan on the other. Imagine your country is invaded and up to 60 kilometers of your land is overtaken. Your government and national army simply weaves a narrative that those 60 square kilometers belonged to the enemy anyway, so there's nothing to worry about. This is what the Indian government and media is doing. Right here, this was the LOC at finger 8. Indian government media is claiming it's actually at LAC at finger 4 rather. So the Chinese haven't intruded at all. It is unlikely that India and China will go to war. It is because India is too weak and China can hurt India without firing a single shot via non-kinetic means, i.e. in the cyberspace and other domains. Chairman Mao Zedong said, "Everything under heaven is in utter chaos. This situation is excellent. This means that the Chinese are trained to see opportunities at times of crisis and challenges. Chinese could see the pandemic situation in India, the economic decline in India, civil war in Kashmir, and they moved their forces into Ladakh." Again, this has nothing to do with Pakistan, but Chinese own national interest. However, we cannot overlook the fact that even in the tactical field, India is checkmated and encircled by both China and Pakistan. When it comes to China and India, there's a difference of opinion. Chinese think strategically and slowly build components and then join them to achieve an overall strategic objective. Indians always operate tactically and simply react to a situation. On the right of your screen is Pakistani SH-15 howitzers and A-100 MLRS. On the left is Chinese PCL-181 howitzers and 370 mm howitzers. Both are on either side of India. Indian government is saying that it is matching the weapons on the LAC, but in military terms, it isn't the weapons but the ammunition which counts. Both China and Pakistan are self-sufficient in ammunition and locally produce it, while the lack of quality and quantity of ammunition is a well-known factor for the Indian army. Chinese may not go away from the Galwan Valley anytime soon. Chinese may not go away from Pangong soon anytime soon. Just like China never went away from the Doklam Valley. But the Chinese will get some kind of face-saving to Indians, so the Indian government can show it to its people. The Indians cannot confront China militarily and have no leverage, but will declare some sort of return to normalcy and then make a Bollywood movie on the issue. As far as the Indians are concerned, as they say in India, all is well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.